Welcome, everyone, to our LifeWave Connect business webinar today. My name is Gerrit Johnson. I'm the U.S. Country Manager, and it's my pleasure to be our host for today. So today we have one of our SPDs that is going to be on with us, and she is. She comes to us with quite a bit of experience. She's been in business for a long time. She's had experience in both Africa as well as the U.S., and so comes to kind of with that international perspective. And yet she's had and her experience in network marketing. She'll get a chance to share a little bit more about this with you in just a moment. But is what it is. But one of the things I've learned from her, especially as we've had a chance to kind of prepare for this webinar today, is that she's got a big heart. She is 100% committed to being able to help, David reach his mission of getting into 1 billion homes, and certainly is having a great impact, having reached the title and the rank of a senior presidential director, who is coming to us from Houston, Texas. And that's our senior presidential director, Leah Stasney. Leah, are you there?
There we go. I'm here.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I know that this is when we have these opportunities to be able to share this kind of information with people, we're so grateful for those who are willing to come on and give their perspective on some of the things that we're doing. Now, today we're going to be talking about personal development, and I think when it comes to this industry and being able to be successful, you have to always be working on yourself. But before we jump into that, Lee, why don't you go through and maybe just share with us a little bit about your background, but also kind of your LifeWave story.
Okay, well, thank you. First of all, I'm excited to be here, and I've loved getting to know everyone on the corporate team, and you guys are always just so helpful for us. But my background with network marketing, I was only in another company for just 2 years prior to LifeWave finding me. And then that's a funny story on how that even came about. But my background has been, for the last 30 years, interior design and architecture. And honestly, 30 years ago, that fit in someone else's life. So that seemed like a natural path for me. And I went to school a little later in life. I was in my mid-30s when I graduated from college, decided to get that degree in interior design. And that started an international career, like you said. I was just 2 years into my degree, and I happened to get a job for an architecture firm here in Houston, and they were an international firm. They did a lot of work in different countries in Africa. So I was fortunate enough to be able to start working on projects in Africa for big oil and gas companies. And that kind of opened that door to international. And of course, when I had a chance to go there, I did. I actually got a chance to live in a couple different countries in Africa for about 9 months. I was in Angola, Luanda, which is on the very west coast of Africa. And then in another small little country, we were building oil and gas companies or compounds. I was in charge of interior design. And you guys, I'll never forget this project. We were building this complete compound, 18 homes, office building, rec center, and I was in charge of buying all the furniture, all the things, and shipping it over. I had 140 containers I shipped. I went over there, did that, came back, and that opened up that door to international business for me. I met amazing people. And so fast forward a little bit, went through some different architecture firms, worked with multifamily, did some hospitality. And the last 2 years of my career, I worked for a small family-owned company out of Dallas. And it was my job to now meet with architects and designers in their offices and do lunch and learn presentations on glass. Now, how exciting does that sound, right? It's not super exciting, but that again helped me to build, and that's when I probably started my personal growth and personal development journey, was back when I was out actually meeting people and doing presentations for big groups of people. And then in May of 2021, Dr. Stacy and Laura called me about LifeWave. And so the last few years of me doing this particular job, I would go to bed on Sunday nights and make myself sick out of just anxiousness. And did I do enough? Did I call enough architects? And LifeWave comes into my lap. And after 4 months, I decided it was time to leave that stress. And so that opened up LifeWave for me. Now, again, I said I've only done network marketing with one other company, and that was all part of my journey, right? I got to learn a lot of the things that we're learning when we're new into network marketing, getting through the fears, all of those roadblocks that we seem to have. But once I jumped in and quit that full-time job, and that was a big decision, you guys, for me. I'm single. I don't have kids. It's just me. And now I've left that corporate job. I've left that comfort zone, and I'm into something that I could see the potential. I knew where I wanted to go. LifeWave brought vision into my life in addition to the personal development. But 31 months in, the personal development has just become so crucial in my business, in growing and learning and that mindset. And Gerrit, I may be jumping right into something.
No, really, this is designed to kind of help understanding your story and what this has done for you, for sure. Both as for the business side of things, but also the importance of personal development. So, I mean, yeah, go into your personal development journey as well, and kind of help us kind of understand what it is that what that journey has looked like for you.
Well, and I knew leaving that corporate job, leaving that comfort zone, now it's just me. What do I need to do to make myself better and make myself grow? And of course, I had incredible mentors, my upline, Laura and Dr. Stasney both. But when we talk about personal development, LifeWave brought that to me, because when I started learning about the technology, and learning about the human body, and learning ways that I can actually not have to worry about not having children to take care of me when I get older. I've done that with my grandmother and my dad and my mom. It was a big motivator for me. So the more I started learning, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wanted to learn more, right? And the more I wanted to learn, and I tell people all the time, I was never a reader. I would maybe start a book on an airplane, and then from there, I may not pick it up again until the next time I get on an airplane. But personal development, I see how that has gone hand in hand with LifeWave, and it bringing it into my life and just wanting to learn more. And that, of course, developed into personal development about our mindset. Right? That is such a core part of developing who we want to become, whether that is someone with LifeWave or whatever someone's chosen profession is. We want to always continue to grow. And I never had that instilled into me growing up. I just thought, like a big percentage of the population, we, go to school, get a job, do the things. And for me, I sat in church for a long time wanting to know what was my purpose. There had to be something more. There had to be something more than just the things I was doing, all the things that I've been told to do. And, LifeWave coming into my life was that answer to that prayer 10 years ago, because it's simple. It's giving me tools to develop myself. It's given me, more compassion for the people I meet every single day, whether that's people that want to be in business with me, or whether it's people that just need some help with some health issues. Personal development has made me a better listener. That's so important, because we actually, when we talk less, we hear more. It's made me want to. I went yesterday. I was fortunate enough to go to this event called Aspire, of all things. I want to aspire to inspire people. I didn't know that before LifeWave came into my life, but personal development has led me down that path, because now I can help inspire people to live their best quality of life, to grow their mind, to change their mindset, right? We always talk so negative to ourselves. That's one of the first things that I try to teach people is don't talk negative about yourself. Number one, I don't want to be around negative talk. So again, it's that mindset shift. Personal development has allowed me to be authentic and be who I am, not who I was supposed to be or who someone wanted me to be in my corporate life, right? They wanted me to be this person in front of architects and designers and talking about glass, but that wasn't passionate for me. And of course, health and wellness, that's always been close to my heart because my dad, I can recall on his 80th birthday saying if he'd known he was going to live this long, he would have taken better care of himself. And so that's stuck with me. That's always been in my subconscious mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, all these things just falling into place and personal development. And there's so many avenues you can do personal development, right? I know you and I talked a lot about some of those in Geraldo on Monday and how they're all so key in growing. If you want to grow as a leader or if you want to grow as a person, you don't even have to give yourself that title as a leader, but to grow as a person, I never understood how important growing was while I was working in the corporate world, if it didn't pertain to what was happening in that corporate world.
It reminds me of a story that one of my good friends, and he worked with another network marketing company that I worked with as well, and he had the opportunity to move to Fiji, and that's just part of the story. But one of the things he said that it's always stuck out to me, and he said, he was very successful. He ran a cabinet building company, and he ended up selling it for millions of dollars. When he decided that network marketing was going to be his means of income going forward, and so he made that big step, just like you were talking about for you, giving up that career, that we're taught our whole lives. That's what we worked for. We worked towards, and now all of a sudden you're taking that big leap to say, I'm going to give that up because I see something better. Well, one of the things that he said once that always kind of stuck with me was, when I ran those other businesses, it took a lot of time and I was always very stressed, and it really had an overall, impact on my relationship with my wife and my kids and everything else. He said, but this is the first time that I can work in a business and I can say that this business has made me a better husband, a better father, a better son, and I think it does come back to that idea of personal development. If we're continually trying to find ways we can improve ourselves and to get better and to be, and I love how you said a minute ago, being a good listener. I mean, that is a very important element of what it is that we do here, so. So that's always kind of stuck with me. I've also heard someone say that, network marketing is nothing more than personal development with a compensation plan. And that really is, because you're constantly learning and growing. And, I've been in the field before, and I've had the opportunity to be a brand partner for another company. And what I can say is there are those moments, those scary moments where you have to get out of your comfort zone. And if you're not prepared for it, if you're not willing to go through and improve yourself and get better and better, it's gonna be tough, And so I really love, what you were saying there, and how we, that this process is just something that if we want to grow and get better, we have to make a commitment to it. So when we're taking a look at this industry in particular, what are some of those, personal development practices that you would say are critical for individuals who are wanting to get into network marketing?
One of the first practices that and again, it's still part of personal development, was goal setting, like physically writing down your goals on a piece of paper. And I was taught that there's power to the pen and the paper. And I know you can't see it, but I've got my vision board just over my shoulder. And there's a lot of things that I've done in the last 2 years because of LifeWave. So goal setting is huge. Another, and again, for me, it falls in personal development, and that is my dedication, and the word is escaping me, but my consistency in letting something like my calendar. My calendar is part of my daily routine. I personally like to see things highlighted off. That's why you'll see a lot of my pages full of this kind of thing. But that's part of personal development for me, in that consistency. I like routine. I like to know what's on my calendar for the day. Of course, reading. I started with some podcasts, some personal development on mindset, on thinking a different way. On, yes, we can, and I always use this as an example. When I did leave the corporate world, it was scary. It was scary because I was single and I didn't have anything else to fall back on. And I saw the vision. Network marketing gave me no ceiling, right? Before I went through 2 failed marriages because I thought that was how I could make my dreams come true. But network marketing gave me my dreams, and I can do it. So it lifted that ceiling. So changing my mindset in that period when I was afraid the Kia was going to call because I was a few days late or a month late on my car note, I had to not let that thought, I had to flip that thought. I had to think of something that brings me joy for 17 seconds. And for me personally, that was watching the sun rise out of the Sea of Cortez from my master bedroom in Cabo San Lucas. So I could flip that thought. So again, mindset is huge. And the best way to do that is with some books. The power of the subconscious mind is a great tool. There's podcast, just being outside in nature. That is huge in itself. And I feel so blessed that I have such a love for nature. I love to fish. I love to hunt. I love to hike. I love to bike. There's not much you could ask me to do outside that I'm not going to go do. Right. Again, that's all part of personal development. It's not just about reading books.
Mm-hmm. I love that. In fact, what I would love to do, and I'd love to collect some information from those of you who are watching the webinar with us today. Maybe put in the chat, and we'll find a way to be able to, either through our Facebook page or something along those lines, share what everyone is sharing. But put in here maybe what are your favorite books, things that have helped you within your network marketing business, or just in general, any podcasts that you might recommend as well. And then we'll collect these. So as we continue on through, this conversation, put those in here. And I certainly would look forward to being able to, we'll definitely find a place to share these so that everyone can kind of take a look at it and get that feedback. Because I think it's invaluable to be able to kind of hear what different people are doing. And not everything's going to work for everybody, but certainly you will resonate with certain things over others. But when it does, you kind of know it. And you're like, okay, that's kind of what I need. And so, yeah, I love that. In fact, one of the things you also mentioned is getting outside. And, growing up, I grew up in a family that was, wonderful family. But one of the things that I would have probably said was a little woo-woo, kind of, I don't know the right word for it, but, but my wife has got me doing it. And I find it's just incredibly helpful, is to literally go outside. And we don't do it necessarily every day, just because certain times of the year it's harder to do. But we'd actually go out and put our bare feet like in the grass and kind of ground ourselves, And I found that to be very helpful in kind of just clearing out a lot of stuff and kind of reinvigorating and kind of connecting with the earth. And I found that to be an incredibly beneficial thing that we did. And my wife got me doing it, and I found it and I loved it. But I think back in the day, I would have probably thought that's a little weird, but it is. Nature is such an amazing way to connect with who we are and understanding a little bit more about ourselves. So I love that you shared that.
Grounding is one of my daily practices.
Love that.
And what I do is I go out and sit and I put my feet in my garden and I have my coffee. And that is my time to do my 10 things I'm grateful for every single day.
Mm.
And this came from a book called The Magic, which I shared with you on Monday. So again, I'm grounding, I'm giving gratitude for all the things. And I challenge people to take 28 days, get a notebook, and each morning list 10 things that you're grateful for every day. And it can be little things. It could be the incredibly amazing cup of coffee you're drinking, because we forget about those things. Or maybe for me during the summer here in Texas, I was so thankful for my air conditioner. My neighbor didn't have one for 2 days and it was 100 degrees in her. So it's back to the basics, but grounding and being grateful is my morning practice.
I love that you brought up gratitude as well, because I think that for me, the more I have been able to take the opportunities to, and I've taken that 28-day challenge before, and I can't say I probably made it every single day, but it was pretty close. But taking those opportunities to really write down, the things that we truly are grateful for. And I try to do that every evening anyways. And I'm a religious person, so I oftentimes will do that through prayer, but like that concept of always being grateful, I think puts us in a mindset that opens us up to more, if that makes sense, versus sometimes when we're ungrateful, we're almost like it's closing ourselves off, a little bit from being able to get the things that we actually really want, because we're not really taking into account everything that really is and that we have access to. And I mean, sometimes you can just look at a few pictures on the news or whatever else, and it doesn't take too long to find things that we're actually grateful for that maybe we've taken for granted even, so I think I love that you do that every day, writing down your 10 things of gratitude and while you're grounding yourself in your garden. One of the things you also mentioned, and I really love the concept of a vision board, and because it's a form of goal setting, but it's also a means of being able to kind of putting our energy and our thoughts into things that we know that we want, or the things that we know will benefit us. What are some of the things you do kind of around your vision board that kind of helps you to I guess achieve some of the things that you as they are, how does, I guess, two questions. I'll go back, I'll step back just a little bit. One question is, what are some of the practices you do around the vision board determining what's on there? And then how do you feel, or what does that process look like when you actually achieve something on your vision board?
That's a good question. My vision board, I'm always adding things to it. Things that bring me joy, things that I can be in a bad situation, or something's happened that I can think of, close my eyes and think of, and it bring me joy. Just like I said, watching the sun rise out of the Sea of Cortez, out of my master bedroom, that I can literally put myself in that space. So things that bring me joy, I'm constantly adding to it. One of the things that's on there is a floor plan of an apartment building or a unit in the DeSoto in downtown Sarasota, because I love Sarasota. Oh my gosh, who would not want to go there and, spend a few weeks, so I put that on there because I go to Sarasota 4, 5, 6 times a year, and why not? Right? I've got one of the things I put on there about 4 years ago when I first did it was a row coach. And when I put that on there, I had no idea how that was going to happen. But when I left my corporate job, that door opened and I became a rowing instructor. So check, that's done. I needed a new car. So I put a picture of a new car on there, put a picture of my, my credit card debt. Check, right? Paid in full is what's stamped on there. It hasn't come yet, but it is. But just things, and it doesn't have to be about things either, right? It can be about the experience. And Dr. Stacy actually taught me that. It's not about all the things, it's about the experiences and how we feel. It's about how we feel, because things can make you feel stressful. Things can make you feel tense inside, and being very aware of those things, being aware of your feelings, number one. And I know that's a little bit off of that board, but and it's always there as a reminder. I don't have to worry about how it's going to come. That's another one of the things that I've learned in personal development. It's out there. I've put it out there. It will come. It will all eventually align up with everything else that's lining up in my life, with LifeWave, with personal development, with my leadership, with my teams, with all the things. Did that answer the questions on the?
Yeah, that's perfect. And I love the fact that that's kind of a live thing, right? You're adding to it, you're taking things off, and it's something that is an ongoing process. I've seen it where people will put together and they'll put all this, hours and hours into doing like a vision board. They'll put it in their closet and then they never look at it again. It's nice and it looks great, but it's not quite the idea of, hey, we're doing this and we're going through this process to achieve things. And one of the things I've always quote, I can't remember exactly who said it, but the concept is this, and that is the growth that we get that comes from achieving a goal is much more valuable than anything we actually achieve from the goal. And so in fact, I even had one of my mentors say to me once. He said, when it comes to a vision board, usually you have to fix something in your life in order to get that thing off of your vision board. So your goal is to find out what is in your life that's blocking it. And he said 90% of the time it's a relationship. And I thought that was pretty eye-opening. And as I've kind of gone through and had some experiences with it, I certainly found that as well, that oftentimes it's the improvement of certain relationships that are going to help us. And sometimes that's with ourselves, right? But it's improving those relationships that oftentimes will help us. And all of a sudden something comes off and you're going, I didn't see that one coming, but you start to realize how that all works. I remember too, there was a funny story where I generally, this was just a preference thing, and maybe it's a little bit OCD, but I always have 9 things on my vision board, basically in a row of three rows of 3. So it's basically a square, and I have it up there. So I'm always working on 9 things. And I remember one morning I got something done and I took it off my vision board. And when I came back that night, something had replaced it. And I was like, wait a second, I didn't put anything else up there. And I happened to notice that it was something that my son had on his vision board. And so I went and asked him, I said, why did you put that on my vision board? You need to put that on yours so that you can achieve it. He goes, well, Dad, I noticed that you keep taking things off of yours. And so I figured maybe I'd get it quicker if I put it on yours. And I always thought that was kind of a funny story, that my son always was eager to get something and thought he could short circuit it by putting it on my vision board.
What a great thing to be teaching him too, though, at such a young age.
Yeah, and that's something too. I look at some of the things that working in this industry has kind of provided me, and now that I'm able to kind of hand that down to my kids as well, I find very rewarding, because those are things that I didn't necessarily have. Not that I was raised in a terrible environment. It was a great, wonderful, loving environment. It just was different, and so it's definitely great when we have the opportunity to be able to to share that. And not just with our kids, though, and that's something you kind of mentioned, is you now have the desire to not just, improve yourself, but now you want to help inspire others to do the same. And so I love that concept, because I think it is something that when we improve ourselves and continue to improve ourselves, we naturally want to improve others and help others. But as someone's getting started, I want to take maybe a step just back a little bit and ask you this question. When you kind of get going through your day, or when things can kind of sometimes, and it happens to everyone, where life kind of gets in the way of things, what do you do? Are there specific things that you do to try to stay motivated so that you can continually have that focus on improving yourself each day?
When I first got started, especially because I'd left the corporate job, there was a lot of times I would ask myself, what did I do? Did I make the right decision? And for me personally, what worked for me was finding something, anything. It didn't matter what the subject was, but something that David Schmidt was doing, a podcast, a YouTube, and I just would listen to him, and I connected with his heart and his mind, the brilliance. It let me know that yes, this was the right place. That's all I knew. I didn't know how I was going to get to where I wanted to go. I didn't even know really where I wanted to go when I first got started, because I didn't know anything about the business. But that just for me, plugging in, or maybe it's plugging in, or hearing testimonials from people. So that helped me to keep that why, right?
Mhm.
Because this technology is so incredible, you can't help but want to share this with people. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. So for me, that's what I did. I listened to something that was growing my mind again to help me stay focused on what I'm doing every day.
I love that. In fact, the concept of keeping a collection of things that, especially when you're maybe having a low moment, to, or to save a text message or something that, where someone says something to you like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what these patches are doing for me. You've changed my life. Those are the types of things that, when things get rough or things get tough, I like how you said that, where you can go back to listen to a testimony, listen to what it's doing for people, the impact that it's having, and it helps us to reconnect it, really reconnect our hearts into, what it is that we're doing, which I think is kind of the key to, for us in order to be able to kind of keep that continuous movement as we go. So are there specific areas in your life that you kind of focus on? So I know that you could have your mental, physical, all these different elements, but what would you say are kind of the key elements that you do, that you kind of focus on when you're looking at your personal development?
Well, you and I talked about this on Monday too, when we were preparing. For me, that mind, body, soul connection, the mind, that's what all the reading the books and the personal development do, and even learning about this technology. You're growing your mind because it gives you so much to offer to someone. And then a part of it for me that I feel like that I just connected with just about 6 months ago was that soul part, that mind, body, and soul, and finding the balance in those components for me was one of the little missing pieces, I think, in my business and in my organization and with my teams. And connecting to that soul part for me was my meditation practice. Again, another form of personal development. We've got to take care of our body too. We need to be out exercising, which I've always done that. But connecting through meditation and doing just the opposite of what we say, right? In meditation, we're quieting the mind. We're not thinking about anything, and that's not easy. And it's a very intentional practice, but there's so many health benefits, again, with just meditating, and how the neurotransmitters fire in our brain, and it brings a calmness to us. And so that for me is crucial in the developing and where I am now.
I love the concept of meditation, and I luckily did actually have an opportunity when we were in Houston to go with you to the place you do your meditation, and I will say it was a fantastic experience. Just the different sounds that they make, and the way they talk, and the way it helps you just kind of really clear your mind, and that was I found to be very beneficial. And so I think when we have those opportunities, and we live in a world that is very loud. I mean, let's face it. I mean, if it's not on social media, or it's the TV, or you name it, everything is so loud in our world, trying to do everything it can to get our attention. And when we take those few moments to really quiet ourselves and really to try to take it back to that. That's how we do. I love how you talked about connecting with the soul in that way. And then I think that another topic that you mentioned there as well was the importance of taking care of the physical body as well, and what an impact exercise can have both on the mind and the body, but even the spirit. When that whole connection is so important when we do that. But and it depends on where you're at in your life, but physical exercise doesn't have to be like, I'm going to go work out for 3 hours a day. It could be going for a 30-minute walk first thing in the morning, and those are the types of things that can really help to kind of trigger the body working properly. That then we have the chance to meditate, which gets our spirit and that working, and then we can listen. And I because I do commute a little bit, we're talking 20 minutes each way, so it's nothing crazy. But I like to listen to audiobooks, while I'm traveling. It's my university on wheels. And I thought about it the other day, how many hours of training have I gotten because I've taken those few minutes each day, to listen to those podcasts, and it really is amazing or audiobooks. And I have a few in that I've been listening to, but I think as we put our effort into those to kind of, I guess, I don't know if balance is ever a perfect thing. I think we shoot for balance, knowing that we're never probably going to ever be perfectly balanced, but the goal's still there, right? And so, but having that, trying to stay focused on each area of our lives keeps us a little bit more centered. So anyway, I love that concept. I probably went a little bit longer about it than I planned on, but I do appreciate you bringing up, the different elements of things that you do, and doing that. So, how have you? I guess to an extent, as we talk about, kind of working in our personal life, where we have, kind of our family and our friends, but then we also have kind of our business life. How do you find personal development helps in each of those areas, but also maybe how does it help interconnect them as well? I hope that made sense.
It does make sense. I started the personal development for my business. So naturally that I want to share that with my teams, because I know how excited I am about the growth that I have seen in myself in the last 31 months. And it makes me excited to share it with other people so they can see the growth in themselves as well, but also for myself to see how I will be and how much different I will have grown, how much more I will have grown in another 2 years from now. And so personal development, again, I did it for the business aspect, and it does spill over into your personal life. It absolutely has to. It can't, because I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm absorbing and I'm making changes, and it does spill into that personal life. And I find myself much calmer when I'm, with my mom and with my sisters. And, I've got one of my sisters that I say she likes to, how do I describe her? She loves to hear me roar kind of person. And so for me, when I'm around that, sometimes I would have to bite my tongue, but I feel like that the personal development I've done, I can even help redirect sometimes conversations when they're talking about or complaining about, I can kind of flip it around. And so I feel like it's really helped me in personal relationships as well.
I love that, because there is always a balance. I remember we always tease my mom because if there's always, in every family. I come from a family of 9 kids, so I'm the second oldest of 9, and so there's always gonna be those moments where we'll get together and we'll be talking, and we might have something funny to say about one of our siblings that maybe isn't there, whatever, just telling funny stories from the past or whatever. And if my mom ever feels like we're disparaging that person in any way, she'll always come in and interrupt the conversation with something that she really likes about that person. And I always find that kind of interesting. She can't help herself, even if I think it's just something that's just ingrained in her, that when she hears someone talking poorly about someone else, she has to say something nice about them. And I think that's something that I think is really an important part of, if we can get to a point where we're only trying to think of the positives in others, we're certainly going to be much better off than if we're purposefully looking for ways to tear someone else down, which of course, unfortunately, we see a lot in our world today, especially when we look at social media and other areas. And so, yeah, I think that's definitely, as we looking into our day-to-day activities, are we trying to stay positive, or do we get sucked into the negative, which is so easy to do because it's just naturally what the news and everything else is about.
It's so easy.
Why probably one of the best things you can do if you're into personal development is to turn off the news. So anyway,
I don't watch the news.
Say something about that?
I don't watch the news at all. Like, things will pop up on my feed and I'm like, oh my gosh, or I'll drive it. Why are the flags flying at half staff? Just because there's so much. Yeah. Like right now, I've gotten feeds every day this week of shootings in different areas. And it's like, it's insanity. And so you've got to be intentional with where you put your time and your energy and what you allow in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So let's talk about challenges, because in everyone's life we do have challenges. We have our ups and downs, but how has when you've met maybe a particular challenge in your business, what have you done, or how have you been able to get through that because you've been focusing on personal development and been able to kind of be able to pull yourself out of those types of experiences?
Just a few weeks ago, I had a situation with one of my brand partners, and it was something that made me feel a certain way, and it wasn't a good feeling. So I'm very aware of how I feel about things, and I knew it was something that needed to be addressed. And so, and that was scary in itself, right? Just working up the stress of how is this going to play out. And what it was something I needed to work on with me. It was something I needed to face. And I was excited about facing it because I know what happens when we face fears. Once we get through the fear, it is just angels singing on the other side of fear. And a lot of people don't realize that. So personal development has helped me to come face to face with things and be excited about moving forward through those things, and being able to say that the personal development I've done has made me be a better listener, and it's made me realize things about myself that I want to change because I want to be better. I don't want someone to feel or take something I've done in a way that's not how it was intended to do. So being able to work with all people, everyone's got a different place that they are in their life, and it's about the compassion and meeting people where they are. So the personal development has helped me to really open my mind to things like that, to those kinds of challenges. The other challenges in our business are just, talking to people, right? Building your own confidence in being able to talk to people. And the best way to learn to talk to people is just to talk to people. It's simple, and just talk to more people. But being able to come to where there is a difficult situation, and whether that is with someone in your family or someone in your business, and be excited about growing through that. I want to grow through those things. So therefore I can be a better leader and a better person to inspire other people on my team and help them grow and reach their authentic best self that they can possibly be.
You mentioned something there that I think is so important, especially when you just look at people and reaching a certain level of maturity. I have kids. My oldest is 20, my second oldest is 18, and they're going through those moments. And it's certainly, when you go through those teen years, it can get a little bit into that selfish side, right? We're always thinking of ourselves. The world evolves around me, kind of mentality. But it's interesting when you get to a point, and it was something that you said a minute ago, where you said, when someone said something about me, or maybe it upset me in a way, rather than going and trying to find out what is wrong with that person, we look internal and we say, okay, is there something I may have done that may have caused that? Or what is it that I need to improve about myself so that doesn't bother me in the future? And, I think that there's a certain level of maturity, but also growth that comes when we're willing to look internal versus always trying to blame, I think, which is, I think, very easy for people to do,
blame or explain.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to explain it. I've never, that's not who I am, and that's not who I want to be. So, yeah.
In fact, I think one of the biggest the roadblocks that we can actually find in personal development for someone who's trying to improve themselves and grow is the blame, is blaming others for the reasons why I'm where I'm at. Because at the end of the day, yes, our parents have an impact on us, our environments have impacts on us, but as an adult, you get to a certain point where you kind of have to look in the mirror and say, yeah, it's on me to an extent. Certainly there are things that we can learn and grow from, but the sooner we actually can get past that and start focusing on improving ourselves and stop blaming others is almost freeing. I mean, the freedom that you gain from that, in a sense, is quite amazing. And I remember a moment when I was. I'm trying to think. I was working for another network marketing company. We just come back from a big convention, and I remember thinking, we met with a lot of our brand partners from around the country, and I was living in Australia at the time, and I remember thinking a lot about how, well, within the corporate structure and everything else, there's politics and kind of being frustrated with how it all was and not, thinking, feeling like that there was, somehow I was being, limited in my ability to grow. And it kind of came as an epiphany to me, that was like, they actually have they probably don't really even know what you're doing, on a day-to-day basis, because I live on the other side of the world for the most part. But also, and I think this is something that Darren Hardy says, when you're 17, you think everyone is thinking about you. When you hit like your 30s, you start thinking that only a few people are thinking about you. But by the time you hit your 60s or 70s, you realize that nobody ever cared. And that's kind of the reality. The sooner we can get to that point where you realize that people just don't really care about you as much as you think or whatever, but that's why it's important for you to focus on yourself and improve yourself, that you stop worrying about what other people think. And that was one of those moments where I really felt a level of freedom that I hadn't felt ever before that. And so I think that when we get to that moment where we stop caring about what other people think and only really trying to improve and develop ourselves for ourselves, but also for those we care about, can make a massive difference. Okay.
I agree with that. I heard yesterday at this event I was at, Tim's story. He said, don't be the discount version of yourself.
Oh, I like that.
Right? Be the best version of yourself. We have to find out who that is. Mm-hmm. In personal development and growing. We have to grow.
So if you were to talking to somebody, let's say someone new on your team who has no experience in network marketing and they're just getting started, what would be your tip to them on how do you get started on this personal development road? What does that look like?
There's I can share with you how I got started on it, and it was by listening to some podcast of Abraham Hicks. I don't know if everyone knows who Abraham Hicks is, but that started me thinking different. It started me thinking differently about so many different things, about my goals, my dreams, the things that I want in my life. That led me to meditation. One of the things that she said with that was, to quiet your mind, just sit for 10 minutes and listen to the fan spinning or just a noise. For me, it was the sound bowls. That's how I found those. But find something, if you get a book and you pick up the book and it's not resonating with you, put the book down. There's a lot of books, but just start with something small. Maybe it's a podcast. There's so many great motivational, inspirational podcast out there. Maybe something might inspire you. I see a lot of them come through my feed on Instagram, just little things. And that can be more on the religious side for you if you want. Some of the books that I read are very in line with scripture and its old teachings. And, that opens up a whole new mindset for you. But just find something, whether it's a book, if you've got time to read a book. Not everyone does. I get to make time for myself now. Before, I didn't have time to read books. Most people don't. Then, like you said, get on stick a podcast in or something in the car versus listening to your music. It's just make a small change and let that start growing upon itself. And it kind of creates that snowball effect. Like I said, when I started learning, I wanted to learn more, which was, that's not so common, I don't think. Especially, I remember in school, I didn't want to learn more. I wanted to learn what I needed to learn so I could not do that anymore. So that's what I would tell someone new starting. And a great place to start learning is to learn about the technology, because it's exciting and it's very interesting, right? And it's something you have that's a tool that can help people. Does that kind of that question?
Yeah, I love that. And you also mentioned something on Monday when we were talking about, and all of a sudden it's slipping my mind, but that concept of creation, I guess, is probably the word that keeps coming to my mind. But the concept of, we have the ability to create things in our lives by our mindset, by keeping a good balance between our mind, our body, and our spirit, all in our soul, so there's all those different elements of it. But by so doing, and by having those connections, now we can actually become a creator rather than a destroyer, which is what a lot of people are out there doing these days, not even realizing that that's what they're doing. What are some things that you've, and the word is like, it's like on the tip of my tongue, but I just can't quite get it. But what is it? What are some of the things that you feel like you've been able to help create, through your team or through, anything really in your life, because you put the time and effort in, and because you have that you put the focus in, and you're driving towards achieving specific goals, things on your vision board or whatever else?
Well, and you were talking about being a creator. So some of in books that I've read and what I've learned is we can choose to be a creator of our life, or we can be a competitor. Right. And being a competitor, that's not a great place to be, because you're always fighting for something. But being a creator, I do listen a lot to my intuitions, or as Dr. Stasney would say, downloads. Right. She started a book club with her leaders, and I'm seeing potential in leaders on my team as I'm growing my organization. So I took that book club concept to my team. And so we do a book club on Friday mornings, and if you show up, don't show up, I'm there, and people come. And so I'm watching that spill over into their personal lives, not only their business lives, but their personal lives. So for me, not that I created the book club, but I carried that into my team. I do team meetings on Tuesday morning. The corporate job that I worked every Monday morning, 7 a.m., I'd have to hurry up and get out of the rowing studio and get on a Zoom. It was our meeting. It was when we came together and what are you doing this week? What did you accomplish last week? Kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I decided, let's have a team meeting. Let's see what people are doing. What's working for people? Where do you need help? And that's just continually grown for the last 6 months. So, I want to create, I want to be a creator, an intentional creator of my life, and hoping that will help to inspire and guide people, showing them what I did. Maybe they can do things I did, but then they can create more things to add to it. And then now we've got a snowball effect. We're all coming together, doing different things and learning from each other. So being a creator versus being a competitor, I tell people, even with sideline people in LifeWave, I'm happy to help people with things that they have questions with, because we're not in competition with each other. There's 8 billion people in the world. So I like to be a creator in trying to create things to continue to help people to grow themselves. And not everyone's at the same place where in their life.
You really, when I take a look back, and we'll say over the last few years. Now, it took you, I think, a little over 2 years. You correct me if I'm wrong, to be able to go from joining LifeWave to getting to the level of SPD. Is that right?
Correct.
So if you think about kind of where that whole journey has been, and it's really, when you think about it, 2 years really isn't that long of time. In fact, the older you get, the quicker you realize those years go by. But certainly in 2 years, what you've been able to create, within your team and with your upline and with your sideline and everyone else, to be able to create something that is really having an incredible impact on so many people's lives, is really a testament to what you've been able to do through your own personal development, through growing yourself, to improving yourself, to get to where you're at today. We're never doing this by ourselves, but certainly there's got to be those moments where we have to internalize, where am I at? How am I going to improve? What am I going to do better? And nobody else can do that for you. And so I love as we talk through this and hearing your stories and everything else, it definitely puts into perspective of I really do understand why you're where you're at, but I also love that this is a journey that's still, the story isn't finished writing yet, right? We're still in the middle of these stories that we get to continue to write about how we're going to be able to do this.
Yeah, that's the most exciting part about every day, is that for me personally, where I am, because I do feel complete balance, mind, body, and soul, but it makes the day exciting. Who is going to be put in my path today? I don't know who it could be. I could meet my rock star at the grocery store. What you think about, and think about the type of business partner that you want. And all of a sudden, and I just had it happen to me last week. I had this idea, and I'll share it once it's more developed, because I want everyone to benefit from it. But I don't know how it's going to develop. But I had this idea of people I could reach out to, and I don't even know where to start. And all of a sudden, this girl comes into my business, and I'm like, thank you. It's like, it's that starting point of that idea that I threw out a couple of months ago. And now I can watch that develop. And that's exciting to watch that grow and develop over the course of the coming months. And it's exciting to see what it'll be.
Yeah, I love hearing that because that is, I mean, it is that, again, it's almost like this new little bud starting to grow, and let's see where it goes. In some cases, it might be a small little beautiful plant. In some cases, it might be a giant redwood. Only time will tell. But you got to plant it, and that's where that thought is kind of planting that seed. We do have a couple quick questions, and then I think we're going to go ahead and finish this up. The first one is, how big does a vision board need to be? I have limited space to display it where I will see it every day. Do you have any
I've
suggestions
got
for
a
that?
couple of them. I'll swing my camera here. This is mine, and it is actually a big piece of foam core,
Love it.
and it's push pins. So, and then I've got another smaller one. So, a vision, you could do a notebook, tape some things in it that you cut out of a magazine. It doesn't have to be, and I've got so many notebooks with different things. So it doesn't have to be that big.
Yeah. And that's what I found. In fact, the first mentor that taught me about the importance of a vision board, and I had one before, but didn't really probably use it in the way it probably should have been used. He actually just said, get that green tape that you would put, on that you could use for painting, because it'll peel off and it's not going to tear your paint off. He says, just get that, create a border, and then put your pictures in between that. And he says, you can put on any wall because it's not going to destroy the paint. And then when you're done, take something off because you got it, or put it back up. It can be that simple, just using, different things, and that you'll need a space about, so big to be able to put something like that up so you can visually see it. So there's so many different ways you can go about doing that. And last question is, how do you flip negative conversations into positive?
Carefully. I would always say, if someone's talking about a negative situation, maybe it starts with, another way to maybe think about that, or another way to look at that could be, and spell that out. It's just about the approach, I guess. You want to make it kind of a soft approach and not be so, don't think that, I know, never say, don't think that, or don't feel that. I didn't tell my brand partner, don't feel that way, because I can't, how you feel is how you feel, it's just about the approach. Maybe looking at it this way, or what if we looked at it in this light, or from this angle, right? Making it a little bit softer landing on that.
Yeah, I love the feel, felt, found approach, and this is not necessarily used for this type of a conversation. I mean, it's usually talked to, for different purposes. But in this case, where someone is going through a tough time, or things have gone really negative, I felt that before, but and this is what I found, and then going through that kind of conversation and helping them to see that, sometimes. I've been in your circumstance. I felt that before, but this is what I learned from it. Now, are they going to always agree with you and want to and automatically just turns the conversation positive? No, because people are people.
Yeah. And communication is the key for any kind of relationship, I think, whether it's with your spouse or with your partner or your boyfriend or your girlfriend. If you can communicate, there's not much you can't do.
Yeah, especially if they feel like they really know that you care, right? It's coming from a point of caring, not a point of judgment. Now all of a sudden they're going to be a lot more open to it, and be willing to make some adjustments. But it won't work for everyone, but it certainly will work for some. Well, Leah, this has been fantastic. I have certainly enjoyed this time and getting a chance to talk about this, and the feedback that we're seeing coming through on the chat here as well is very, very positive. And so thank you for your time today. And we look forward to being able to hopefully do something like this again, just because I think it's so valuable when we're looking at how can we continually try to improve ourselves. And that's not an easy process. It takes time and effort, but it's definitely worth it.
Absolutely.
Any last thoughts before we finish up?
Well, I so appreciate all of the time. And, again, it's, time is going to continue to pass. Do we want to be where we are today next year? we want to be a little bit further down the road. We want to grow. So continue to grow, whatever that looks like for you.
I love that. Well, we'll end with that. Thanks everyone for being on today. Leah, again, thank you. And we will look forward to catching up with you on next month's webinars. And we'll wishing you all the best, especially as we're heading into some holiday season. Take care, everyone.
Yes. Have a great day.